Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark. We are in Mark chapter 6, and we're going to be starting verse 25 this lesson. But before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16. Thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. Now, Salome goes in, she dances in front of her stepfather and all these other men at the party, and she pleases him, and the King Herod, gives an oath to give her whatever she asks, up to half of his kingdom. So verse 24, it says here, and she went forth and said to her mother, what shall I ask? And she said, the head of John the Baptist. Remember, when she said, what shall I ask? She asked it in the middle voice, meaning that she was asking for something for herself. She was saying, Mommy, what should I ask for myself? Right? But her mother said, the head of John the Baptist, right? The head of John the Baptist. Now we start this lesson, verse 25. And she came in straightway with haste unto the king and asked, saying, I will that you give me by and by in a charger the head of John the Baptist. All right, by and by means like immediately. All right, so without wasting any time, she wanted John's head to be brought to her immediately. When the hook has been set in the mouth of the fish, don't waste time thinking about what to do, right? You need to start reeling. When you're out fishing, like I said last lesson, you're out fishing and you try to set the hook, and finally you set the hook, and you realize you've got the fish. Don't sit there. What do I do now? No, you got to start reeling the fish in, right? And this is why she sent Herodias sent her daughter right out immediately. One commentator said that she acted quickly because she didn't want Herod to find a reason to change his mind. Right? She didn't want Herod to oh, that's right. I forgot. I'm going to change this oath. Everything up to half of my kingdom except John the Baptist too, right? No, she got right back in there. She got right back in there, and she asked for John's head, right? Now let's read verse 26 through 26 to the end, 29. And the king was exceeding sorry, yet for his oath's sake, and for their sakes which sat with him, he would not reject her. And immediately the king sent an executioner, and commanded his head to be brought. And he went and beheaded him in prison, and brought his head in a charger, and gave it to the damsel, and the damsel gave it to her mother. And when his disciples heard of it, they came, and they took up his corpse, and laid it in a tomb. Now, verses 26 to 29, verse 26 says, and when the king was exceeding sorry. He was exceeding sorry. And you can bet, listen, you can bet that Herod sobered up real quick. He sobered up real quick. As soon as she said, I want the head of John the Baptist, it didn't matter how many glasses of wine he had. Believe me, he sobered right up. Now, Herod sees the full plan of Herodias, his wife, and the foolishness of his actions. All right? He sees it. He knows now that he was used. The king was used by someone. The king, listen, the king of a land was used by someone. And that's a very shameful thing. For a king to have to admit that he was used by someone. That brings shame and disgrace. And now we don't know the other men that were at this party. We don't know how if these other people knew how King Herod liked John. We don't know if maybe King Herod shared with the other men, I like this guy, John. I like going down there. I go and visit him and he's nice and I really like him. We don't know if he shared anything with these other men concerning his thoughts about John the Baptist. If he did, then those other men, they also see the plan. And it brings great disgrace to King Herod because now he's seen as the sucker. He's seen as the sucker in all of this. So if it was just between him and Herodias, if he never shared his thoughts, then he knows he's steaming inside because of what his wife has done to him. But he sees her plan right now. Now he knows why Salome danced in front of him. Now he sees the full plan of Herodias in front of him, and he's sobered up. He's feeling very ashamed and disgraced within himself. And hopefully it's not with the other, that the other men see that he's been used by someone. The king was used, right? Trust me. Trust me. You can be sure that there was tension in the bedroom that night, right? You can be sure that there was tension in that bedroom that night. When Herod and Herodias got alone, you didn't want to be anywhere near that room. You wanted to be on the other side of the castle of the kingdom, right? You wanted to be far away from there. When it's finally revealed, your old sin nature and Satan's kingdom wants the death of some part of your walk with God. Listen to me. Your old sin nature and Satan's kingdom wants the death of some part of your life. It wants the voice of God and it wants the word of God silenced. To live according to your lusts will require that you put some blessing from God to death. Let me say that again. In order for any of us who are Christians to live according to our lust, when Satan dangles a lust in front of us, and we give our heart to that lust, even if it's just for a short time, some blessing of God has to be put to death in order to feed that lust. And that's exactly, you see the things of this world, the glimmer and the shiny lights, and the cars and the houses and the boats and the land and all the things that this world has to offer. And you say, oh, it's wonderful, it's wonderful. And then when you give your heart to that thing, then the plan is revealed. The plan is revealed. You're the sucker. You're the sucker. And in order for you to live according to that lust, you must put some blessing from God to death. Because that's exactly what Satan wants. Satan wants you to put your prayer life to death. Satan wants you to put your study life to death. Your old sin nature will rise up within you, and it will want you to put the things of God to death. And then you'll realize, I was the sucker. Listen, every one of us is tempted by our old sin nature every day, throughout the day. Every one of us is being drawn away by Satan's snares that he lays in front of us. The gins of iniquity, the plans, the schemes of Satan's kingdom. And when we get trapped into his schemes, something from God has to die. Has to die. There's no coexisting between God's kingdom and Satan's kingdom. It just doesn't happen. Listen, either we are putting to death the deeds of the flesh, or the flesh is making us put to death the deeds of the Spirit. There's no peace treaty can be made. No peace treaty can be made between God's kingdom and Satan's kingdom, between God's kingdom and our old sin nature. There can be no peace treaty. God has judged our old sin nature. He put it to death on the cross. No peace treaty. This is why I said we need to be careful. We need to die to the things of this world, because if we don't die to the things of this world, then we are dying to the things of God. Every day you're either dying to the things of this world, or you're dying to the things of God, to the blessings of God. James chapter 1 verse 15 says, and sin, when it is finished, what? Brings forth death. When sin is finished in our life, it brings forth death. Does that mean ultimate death? Yes. But it means the death of the things of God. Death of your prayer life, death of your life going to church, death of your fellowship life, death of any kind of a ministry that you have or that you're involved in. There can be no peace treaty. We must be putting to death the things of our flesh, the things of this world, not be suckered into the tantalizing things of this world. Must see them for what they are. They're distractions. They're things that will cause us to have to put to death the things of God. Herod didn't want John dead, but he got trapped. He got used by his wife. And therefore, he made an oath. He gave an oath to this pleasure, this temporal pleasure. He gave an oath to this temporal pleasure. And because of that oath, the man of God had to die. And every day we're tempted to make oaths to this pleasure, oaths to that pleasure, oaths to this other pleasure. And as soon as we make an oath, I'm going to do that, something has to die from God. Verse 28, and brought his head in a charger and gave it to the damsel. And the damsel gave it to her mother. As I said back in verse 24, when a person is being used, they end up with nothing. Salome was used by her mother. Salome got nothing from this. John's head was brought to the damsel. And who did the damsel brought it to her mother? They do all the work, but all the glory and benefits go to the one doing the using. Right? The one being used does all the work, but all the glory goes to the one who's doing the using. This portion of Scripture is all about John the Baptist and Herodias. Herod and Salome. Listen, King Herod and Salome were only tools in Herodias' hand. See, I think any commentator, any preacher, whatever, that says this is between John and Herod, they got it all wrong. They got it all wrong. This is between John the Baptist and Herodias. This is John the Baptist and Herodias. The King Herod and Salome, they were just tools in Herodias' hands. That's it. When the unsaved and even when carnal Christians stand before God, listen, when unsaved people stand before God at the white throne judgment, and when carnal Christians stand before God at the Bema seat, it will be apparent that they were only tools for Satan's kingdom. They were only tools being used by Satan's kingdom. Tools that were used against God's kingdom and against God's work. You may say, well, I don't see what the harm is in watching these TV shows or giving my life to these this pleasure, this pleasurable thing, right? I don't see what the harm is. You don't see it now. You will see it then. You will see it when you stand before God. You will see how it affected your prayer life. You will see the things that you could have had and the things that you could have done if you had just died to that thing. If you just had put that thing to death, you will see what you could have done. How many more souls would be saved? How many more Christians could have been, brothers and sisters in the Lord, could have been blessed by your life? Right? You're just tools in Satan's kingdom. Tools being used by him. All right? We're going to continue on next lesson. We're going to get into the feeding of the 5,000 starting next lesson. But until then, walk with the Lord. I know he walks with you.